I'm sure you know the feeling when you reflect on your year and look for things you could improve. I guess we've all been there, thinking about things we could have done better or are generally unhappy about. And then when we hit New Year's Eve or New Quarterly, and we're like, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going to run 3 times a week, quit smoking, or study 2 more hours each day. That's great. We're looking to make these changes, but 2 days in and you fell back into the habit of smoking. 2 weeks in and we're already studying less than initially. 1 month in and we just barely manage to strap on our running shoes once a week. My goal in this video is to help you identify problems that hold you back from working harder, offer consistency tactics, and teach you a suggestive approach on monitoring your habits and progress to stay motivated and on top of things. As I've mentioned in previous videos, things that work for me don't necessarily have to work for you. I try to personalize and sort of generalize these topics that I talk about to make an easy frameworks for you to apply and fix certain issues in your day-to-day life. So I hope you'll enjoy the following video. The problem of traditional goal setting and starting out. I'll get straight to the point on the issue of traditional goal setting and starting out. Traditional goal setting is a list of goals that you jot down in your journal or the back of your mind to simply decide to follow through on. Maybe you have a vague structure in mind, but it's so vague for you to follow through on. These lofty goals are often born through shame, rejection, or guilt. Think about it. When we set weight loss goals, it's because of how uncomfortable we've gotten in our own skin rather than striving to achieve a fit and healthy lifestyle. There is no fundamental vision, no sense of direction or growth, kind of leaving us unmotivated. We feel disengaged from our own expectations, making us question what the sense of direction of this goal actually is. What are we doing this for? Are we willing to better ourselves because of somebody else's wish, or because of a distant desire that is really just to fit in with the norm? I'm going to show you how I think it's right to start strong into a new period. Listen on. The first step. I believe that execution is not the most important aspect that will lead you to reach your goals. It's something that you must ensure for consistent motivation. It's easy to wake up every morning because you have to go to work, but it's hard to wake up every morning to say and go to the gym because it's something entirely optional. Like, you don't really have to head to the gym. It's not like your financial status actually depends on it. Needless to say, don't plan too much either. At some point, you'll have to execute too. But beforehand, take a moment to take a step back and really think everything through. Many sources align to 3 overarching consistency: vision, identity, and articulation of goals. A vision is your main source of motivation. It's different from your identity because it strictly underlies your core principles and ambitions. It sort of defines who you are as a person. If you're somebody who's generally more outgoing and convincing, then you'll find that it's going to be hard for you to work in an office full-time, contrary to you becoming a salesman. A vision is your biggest why. It sort of acts as your guiding star and determines where you want to go in life. A vision is flexible though, because it lets you adjust your little goals and motivations to better fit your underlying purpose. I think I'm becoming a bit spiritual right now. Nah, I'm good. Identity is a big contributor, but it needs to be attained. Research suggests that former athletes are on average more physically active than former non-athletes, which makes sense, right? It's natural that these habits are deeply rooted in a former athlete's psyche. I can relate to that. While I'm not exercising to win any medals nowadays, I still think about this habit because I can still identify myself as somebody who enjoys the idea of being fit and healthy. Somebody who trains to run for a marathon doesn't do it for the sake of completing the marathon, but because he sees himself as a runner. It's a big contributor to overall ownership too, just like vision. The way you kind of get an identity that sticks is by shifting your beliefs and mentality. It's sort of autosuggestive to tell yourself these things and slowly convince yourself of them. More drastic measures would involve signing up for a half marathon or changing your environment. More on that on consistency tactics. The articulation of goals can be done in different ways, but generally it should be done with the following keywords in mind: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Of course, I'm talking about the SMART method, which tends to be talked over a bit in a very broad sense. So here's a step-by-step walkthrough. We're gonna start with the first point: specific. You ask yourself a few following questions, and to kind of discern your goal and to really specify it down, get all these points in, and then you're gonna have a very clearly defined goal. So, first question: who is involved in this goal? It can be you, multiple people. What I want to accomplish, of course. What do I want to achieve this goal? Where do I want to achieve this goal? And why do I have to achieve this goal? You can sort of answer these questions and get a better and clearer insight. Measurable would define, of course, how many or how much. So, say, for example, you'd want to get about 12 by 3 reps in. So, you'd do 3 sets of 12 on maybe pull-ups, then push-ups, and you kind of like measure what your goal is. Maybe you want to set a record. Maybe you want to say, okay, I want to be able to do 12 pull-ups by the end of the month. How do I know when I reach this goal? Again, you set a certain benchmark. For weightlifting, it could be lifting a certain amount of weight. Maybe you want to increase your max one-time repetition to 100 kilos from 90 kilos. And what is my indicator of progress? So how do I know when I've done better? Achievable being, do I have the resources and capabilities to achieve this goal? So again, maybe you want to start a YouTube channel, so you kind of see what equipment do I have? Like, do I have a phone? Is a phone enough? Do I need a camera? Do I need to get a new microphone? And so on. And have others been able to do this successfully? So of course you can look on YouTube how other YouTubers, for example, would make their channel on a budget. Realistic being, is this goal realistic within reach? So you can of course just say, oh, I want to learn how to fly and fly around like a little bird. I mean, that's a very unrealistic expectation. And am I able to commit to achieving this goal? So again, if you think this is too much at once, then maybe set down your expectations a bit and then try and work your way up from there. Time-based, lastly, is of course, what is my timetable? So you can use, for example, the Excel sheet that I'm later going to be presenting to properly structure your next coming weeks. And by when do I want to achieve this goal? So you can give yourself a timetable and a deadline. Lastly, again, here you can look at everything in all its glory. You can screenshot this, you can crop out my face in it. I'll give you a quick recap. In order to stay consistent, especially with habits, there are 3 important points to keep in mind. Vision, which really just consists of your own personal core principles and interests. Identity, which can be changed to better fit into your vision and fuels your motivation. And articulation, more specifically, the articulation of your goals. One method to plan out your goals with is the SMART method, which helped me the most, contrary to just writing them down, because I can write down something simplified and more specific, and everything else that is easy to revisit every day. So here we're going to briefly go over 12-week year planner. Here we have the accountability profile. You can just fill out everything that you see right here. So name, date, it's of course personal, so you can type in whatever you want and share it with whomever you like. For each week, we sort of have this little box here. And if we're looking at the first week, I have some stuff written in. It's of course very early. You wouldn't run a half marathon if you train to run for a half marathon in your very first week, but we can just look at it anyway. It's kind of involves sub goals, so small things that you have to do to achieve this weekly goal here. I even gave it a title. And the good thing about this is that you can also type in to what percentage you managed to kind of achieve this goal, and then you get an average calculated. So say I didn't really get that good sleep because I maybe went to bed early, but I still felt fit. You can say, okay, I achieved this goal by 50%. You can do the same thing here again. You can just type in whatever goal you have. Maybe you have an exam, so I'm typing in passing the exam. And then you just type in some sub goals. So sub goals could be things like, again, getting good sleep, revising all like old tests based on the exam so you kind of have an idea how the exam works, maybe read through the exam rules and everything. The biggest hurdle and how to overcome it. As you start executing, you realize that it's significantly harder than just defining your method-based goals. Here are a handful of tactics that will contribute to you staying consistent. I'm going to start with a few points on the 4 laws of behavioral change introduced by James Clear in Atomic Habits, a book that has appeared on his channel before, but I can absolutely recommend it because I'm only going to be talking about 3 key points that are talked about in these 4 laws. Habit stacking is to use an existing habit or outside event by chaining a new habit to it. Say, once you attended a regular course and you're sort of in this flow, head to the gym afterwards on your way home. It's kind of like, oh, I'm on my way home. I might as well just get another task in that I'm not really used to. Motivation ritual. It's all about doing something you enjoy before or after a difficult habit. Kind of like a ritual that will make you associate something good with this difficult habit. Prime the environment. Clear says that it's not about motivation, but about the environment. Agree or not, prepare your environment so that it's good things that are easiest to do. The so-called path of least resistance, as he says it. For example, when I'm editing a video, I got a place that I typically associate with hard work. Not my living room or this cozy room that I'm in right now. I can't get much work in here because it's a place that I relax at. The university library, on the other hand, is a great place for me to edit my videos. And since I'm editing there in the first place, I can perform habit stacking to study immediately after editing. If you're not a student, then it also simply helps to do things outside of home, like an internet cafe, shared work hubs, or co-working spaces. Since I have a train ticket, I often just sit inside of a train and go back and forth doing demanding writing work. For instance, I managed to write a high margin of this video's rough script entirely as just sitting on a train that's been going for about 3 to 4 hours as I'm commuting occasionally. A useful method to prime your environment is to also do things with friends or a community. There are a lot of clubs on things such as riding, running, or cycling. If you're looking for a summary on these methods above and more, check the link in the description. Here's a strong piece of advice from former Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and ultra marathon runner, and also just so much more, David Goggins. So here's a slightly altered quote on this just to keep it family friendly. The cookie jar is something I've made up of all the failures of my life. All the things that have failed and I went back and finally succeeded. All the things that kicked my butt, I put them all in the cookie jar. Because in the times of suffering, even when the hardest men forget how hard they are, suffering is just a test of life. Whenever I get pulled into a woe is me or life sucks mentality, I step off and pull out something from my cookie jar and remind myself what a certified beast I am. It's a reminder of who you truly are at the core yourself. Wow, right? After all, we're talking about the guy who used to be one of the strongest men alive. I often face this when I'm running for a longer time. Nick Bare, a hybrid athlete and entrepreneur, who is also an Army Ranger, talked about going one more in his book 25 Hours a Day. He says that if you want to make athletic progress, pain is natural. Once you're at a point of exhaustion, tell yourself you'll do, for example, 1 more kilometer or mile when you're running. And once you finished it, do 1 more. Always keep your mind focused on the next higher thing and then see how far you can go from there. Lastly, is to find a certain sweet spot, slightly outside of your comfort zone. And you realize that it's surprisingly easy to keep motivation at an all-time high. You enter a certain flow-like state when a task at hand is within comfort, but still challenges you a bit. Of course, you must still keep things interesting by creating novelty. Add new things to your toolset every now and then, but never just too much at once so you feel overwhelmed. For example, as I learned to edit these videos by myself, I kind of learned that it's hard to just take it all at once because you can do so many things that are better than what you're doing right now. But to make one improvement each day is in the long term just so much more helpful than doing everything at once and becoming frustrated with it. If you're looking for respective books on productivity and self-improvement that I mentioned above, read Atomic Habits by James Clear, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and 25 Hours a Day by Nick Bare. Let's briefly address perhaps the biggest problem that comes with consistency, letting negative habits take hold of you and diminish your progress, especially when it's been around for months or even years. Back in high school, when I was a skiing athlete, consistency was the only way for me to improve. Actively analyzing training footage and talking about the mistakes and things that I could have done better. These things would go into my training journal, A list of vague improvements like don't skew the hip, use your knees, or get away from the back seat, shift your center of mass forward. Something I noticed is, looking back over my old entries, is that especially when I come back to this journal, is that I've never really managed to get rid of these habits in my skiing, even today. Moreover, I jotted down these negative habits, the things for me to improve on, very vaguely. I didn't consider smart goal setting or any other method, thinking that next time would be different. But the next time never came. Even today, my center of mass is still in the back when the hill gets steep, maybe out of fear. But it doesn't allow me to have perfect control over my skis, and it really doesn't look all that professional either. My point is that there's no way around achieving consistency by ignoring traits that affect you negatively. Sure, I think it's fair to say that I definitely ski really good in comparison to the average, but for being an ex-athlete, this habit has stuck with me for so long that it sometimes feels impossible for me to change it. The longer a negative habit sticks around, the harder it will be for you to erase them. They require active work and clear structure. So keep that in mind. That is just a personal experience that I've made, and I'm sure you'll find something else that you can kind of reflect on and compare to really don't make the same mistake again, because I believe in you. You can do it. So here we're looking at these habit scorecards, also based on Atomic Habits by James Clear. And they're very nice because if you want to have habits that stick, you can monitor them, and it also really contributes to you actively working on improving them. So since you care and you actually write these things down, you're going to be kind of annoyed when, say, you have a positive habit, you ate positively each day in a whole week, and then suddenly you have maybe a day where you have a very unhealthy meal, so you type in N. Now, of course, it's important to reward yourself on eating healthy, so you can, of course, have these cheat days every week. That is fine. But if it's something that you don't want, if you want to stay consistent with it, then an N is going to annoy you. Say you had a kind of unhealthy meal, it's kind of in the middle, it's maybe part of your diet, but it also had some unhealthy dessert maybe, you can add an M for neutral. With all these things in mind, let's make your next 12 weeks the most productive weeks you've ever had in your life. Click the Dropbox link in the description below and download the sheet entirely for free. As usual, like the video for the algorithm and subscribe to the channel, and I thank you for watching this video to the end. Have a nice day.